back to another video! The Dragonite prophecy is what kicked off Arc 1 to us. So many lives look forward to a world where Pyrrhia could be free of its lasting war. When all hope seemed lost, supposed seers came forward with a telling of apparent destiny. 5 Dragonets would hatch and restore peace on the continent. But what would happen if this roster had been more packed? Tui originally planned for every tribe to be represented. Who may we have been missing? How would things have been different? And how did we get here? I'm going to be talking about all of this and more in today's video. Thank you to Vicky M. Bourne for suggesting this. Before we begin, a huge shout out to my patrons. 95, Thistle, Noob, Toe, Pyre, Nuke, Avro, Pancake, Scrata, Adequate, Alex, Cleaver, Moonclaw, Isaac, Breakfast 9, Pantala Resident, Tries the Furwing, Crystal, Vent, and the Dragon, TurtleTheSeawing, Wolfyez, Misty, and a Newt Spring. Thank you also for supporting me. Links to social medias are in the description down below. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into the video. Spoilers ahead for the entirety of Arc 1, including a big twist. The tribes featured in the prophecy were intended to be a Mudwing, Seawing, Skywing, Nightwing, and Sandwing. Morrowseer and Battle Winners fabricated words notably left out too, the Rainwings and the Icewings. Rainwings were excluded because of how lowly they were viewed by everybody, especially the egotistical Nightwings. They found the Rainforest Dragons to be lazy and unremarkable, as they stepped not a claw into the war. It's crazy how much their tribe has changed over the years, going from brutal, terrifying assassins to a peaceful and overall non-violent society. There was a reason for it. But in modern times, Rainwings were hardly respected. So to Morrowseer and his queen, how could anybody possibly believe one of them could help end genocide? The Icewings were excluded because of their 2,000-year bitter rivalry with the Nightwings. And since they wrote and created the prophecy themselves, they could stuff it with their own biases. Like not allowing one of their Dragonets to be a hero, and even ignoring how the hue of their blood differs from those of all the other tribes. I know the detail about an egg the color of dragon's blood was probably just an overlooked mistake, but hey, I can totally see the Nightwings doing this on purpose, just to rub it in the faces of their enemies even more. While Skywing was intended to be part of the prophecy, Scarlet and Burn killed the egg Vitter stole, so Webs had to act fast and find a Rainwing who was going to hatch that same night. It was the quickest to take with what little time and prep they had to spare. And so, Glory was born inside that cave. The prophecy fell apart in 2 ways at the same time, unbeknownst to the Guardians, because Sunny is a hybrid, and therefore not a full Sandwing. Tui's original early drafts of the books included a roster that was stuffed with representation of every tribe. However, having 7 main characters just doesn't work. So, early on, the idea had to be scrapped, and I'm sure Tui thought hard about how to logically remove 2. Honestly, at first I was surprised at why Morrowseer didn't just make it an elite group of the brightest Nightwings. It would have been easier for him to control his lie. Though when I thought about this more, I realized why he had to pick some tribes that his own didn't necessarily care for, and it's had a history with. It was to gain subconscious connection and loyalty to his false words. Let me explain. If Battle Winner's ideas were of only Nightwings, it would feel easier to be disconnected from the prophecy. You're more likely to be interested in something you can relate to. Each tribe represented had immense pride of their scales and culture. To open them up easier to this fantastical end of a fight, you needed to launch it better from the beginning. Let them think it's fair. Like their dragons are heroes too. Like they could be. They would trust the prophecy way more because one of their own was in it. Morrowseer is such a manipulator, you guys. But it still begs the question. What if this Dragon of the Midnight went overboard with such a sentiment? In this alternate universe, we still have Clay, Tsunami, Glory, Starflight, and Sunny, but now we need a Skywing and an Icewing. Tui had multiple ideas for a Skywing, such as adding Peril and or Sky into the main first arc plot. She even thought a dragon named Winter could be the Icewing. Regardless of if it was these characters, similar ones, or even entirely different faces, that cave would have been tight. I honestly think the DoDs could have been way less close as a group because of it. I could see them having been akin to their false counterparts, lacking that closeness and ending up more chaotic and stressed as a result. Especially if the Skywing or Icewing had traits that matched those of the rest of the tribe's stereotypes. Okay, ignoring the absolute mess that is about to ensue between our protagonists, let's try to find out some method of squeezing these two new DODs into the arc. 5 novels is enough to tell one story, but we can't take away another title. They're all so important. Instead, I propose we combine these two POVs into one shared book. They'd go together interestingly with their opposite fire and ice abilities, or maybe even personalities. We've gotten WAF novels with more than one POV before, but it's always been by switching back and forth between main characters. So, what if instead they split the book evenly? One gets the first half, and the other the second. Uninterrupted pages until the middle when we go that different direction. Tui would have needed to extend Arc 1's story in a way that wouldn't feel like it was dragging at all, which would be a hard task. To do it, Starflight's novel in particular may have to be reworked. It was such a great stopping point for the primary hype and action of the arc by looking like it was easing us into Book 5, until just leaving us with a shocking twist. Maybe new development could come from the war, perhaps into a Sunny's future choice. Maybe this novel could focus more on secretly setting up the Eye of Onyx? There are lots of ways it could be taken, and at the end of the day, I am beyond grateful this POV list was shortened. I can't imagine dealing with so many plot threads. Even just envisioning how cramped the DOD's cave would be is wild. What do you think about this video? How would you have shoved in 2 tribes if you were forced to? And how much more insane would it all have gotten if Pantala had their own Children of Destiny? Let me know down below. I'd love to talk about that on the channel here soon. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.